Okay, you found your home, and now you're wondering what are the next steps. And this is why I mentioned that you may need an agent unless you're capable of doing this all on your own. We're going to go now through probably around 14, 15 different steps. And I'm going to show you step by step and explain to you as detailed as I can, so we don't make this video super long, what are the steps and how to work with your agent on those steps. So you will learn, and you're going to see on the screen the contract that you'll be sending to the seller. You're going to understand more what is the appraisal, inspection, contingencies, seller concessions, and the best part is the closing day. Okay. So first step is you have to make sure that you are pre-approved. Okay. So you have to find a good lender, broker, whoever, and to make sure that they pre-approve you. There is a difference between pre-approval and pre-qualification, right? Most of the time in Virginia, probably in all other states, seller, they don't want even to bother with your contract if we don't attach pre-approval. For you to get the pre-approval, you have to contact again your lender, or we can help you with that with one of our partners. And they're going to ask you for some probably bank statements, or if you're self-employed, or your W-2, 1099s, tax returns, right? All that. And they're going to ask you for the all documents they need so they can pre-approve you, right? You want to have that pre-approval ready, maybe even before begin your search, as that pre-approval is going to tell you how much you can actually afford. Remember from the previous video, we talked about setting your budget. So that budget is really important because that budget is going to be based on your pre-approval. So if you have pre-approved for $300,000, then we should not waste your time, our time, in looking at homes for $500,000 or $1 million, unless you want to put down payment to cover the difference, which most of the time it does not happen. So first step is make sure to get the pre-approval and understand the difference between pre-approval and pre-qualification. Pre-qualification won't give you much, but pre-approval is exactly what you need, and that's the way to go. The next step, and you're going to see now on the screen, we're going to go over the contract. So sending an offer. You got the pre-approval, we find a home, you saw the home, you like it, and now we're going to go and send the offer. So I'm going to open it on the screen and you're going to see it as well. We're going to go step by step. So if you want to skip this part, if you already know, you don't have to watch it, but I strongly suggest, if you never did this before, to stay and follow these couple of pages. Before that, as I mentioned before, this is the previous part that we covered. It's a buyer presentation agreement. So your agent is going to make sure that he already has this signed. And then when this is signed and ratified, this previous one is basically void. It transfers to other one. Okay. So here, a residential sales contract in Virginia. In most other states, it's very similar. However, we're focused right now only on Virginia. And there's some basic information here that it's like your name and seller's name and which brokerage represents you. So in this case, will be EXP. And now we're going to important parts, that is real property, meaning the location of the property. And now here are the numbers. So these numbers are based on your pre-approval previously mentioned. So in this case, if we have a sales price of, let's say, $400, right? Down payment will be, let's say, 10%. And we're going to do the conventional loan. We're going to go around and about these loans in some other video. They will learn more about commercial, VA, FHA, USDA, and other loans. But right now, let's say we're going to go with a conventional loan. and total financing will be basically 90% or 390,000, right? Seller payment towards the buyer brokerage compensation. This is what we talked in previous video when I was explaining the buyer rep agreement. This is that 3 or 2% mentioned previously that your agent has to negotiate for himself or herself with the seller. There is agreement between you and your agent, of course, but your agent has to negotiate with them if he wants to get paid more. So just for the sake of this video, we're going to put here 3%, okay? Financing contingency. Yes, this contract will be contingent under financing contingency because you're going to expect for your bank to cover, meaning pay for your property and give you the mortgage. So in this case, you're going to say, yes, it's contingent. In the case that you don't get, for who knows what reason, financing on the end, you have a right to back out of the contract because your contract is contingent under financing, and that's a good thing. If you're paying cash, then there is no financing contingency. Appraisal. We're going to go in this a little bit deeper, the next steps, but basically appraisal, yes, this contract will be contingent under appraisal, and I can actually explain to you what appraisal is. Appraisal is really important, no matter in which type of the market, right? And unless you are, let's say, a flipper, or you really understand the market and you're really experienced and you just don't care how much something costs and just want to throw the money into it, and you have to make the offer really strong, then you can decline appraisal. But if you're first-time home buyer and you really want to get as much as safety, security possible, then I suggest going appraisal. Because what can happen? Let's say that you offer for a home $400,000, right? Let's stick to that number. And you don't do appraisal contingency. Okay? You get the contract, everything is cool. The bank comes and bank appraises your property, the one that you're going to get a loan with, for $350,000. Okay? In this case, you can negotiate with the seller for them to try and lower the price for $350,000 to meet you there. However, they can say no, and most of the time they will say no. I had personal experience that I was a seller, and in this case actually was the same number, 400, and my house got appraised for 375. They tried to lower it, and I didn't lower because I knew that was actually short-term rental, and I knew that home is really high producer and it's worth much more than the bank gives you. So in this case, I was lucky, and the buyer was smart enough to actually cover that difference of, I think, $35,000 cash for them to purchase the property, and they bought a home that is, let's say, valued less on the paper than they paid it, but now they're making really nice money with the rentals. However, if your appraisal comes lower than your offer price, then you cannot back out of the contract because you didn't select appraisal contingency. If you selected the appraisal contingency, then you have that safety that you can back out the contract if seller doesn't want to negotiate further. So let's say it's contingent, right? Okay, if it's contingent, then seller will provide the appraisal access for appraisal purposes by representation. So this is important part, meaning, are you going to occupy this property as a primary residency or not? Let's say you will. Deposit. So what is the escrow deposit and how can be used, and does it really matter? it does matter. And usually the standard, again, let's take this price of 400,000. The standard is around 1%, right? In this case, for 400,000, we would suggest do the $4,000 escrow. Escrow means that if you want to back out of contract and you are not backing out the contract with a mutual agreement with the seller, then they can keep that escrow. So you lose the money. How that escrow can be used if everything works well is that escrow can go towards your closing costs, which is a really great thing, right? So if your closing cost is $20,000 on the end, they're going to deduct that $4,000 out of your escrow, and you're going to be due only $16,000. So yes, we're going to say we in deposit, and most of the time is check or bank wired. So let's do 4K. Of course, we have to put the real numbers, but it's just faster right now to show it to video. And it's going to be, in the case using title company, right? And we always use title company. It's going to be given to the settlement agent. Okay. And this case is not delivered yet. So it will deliver to deposit to escrow agent. So we will give that money to the escrow agent. And let's say 5 business days, right? So that's kind of standard. Okay. The next step is settlement. So closing time. The shorter, the stronger your contract is. The longer, you're kind of safer, but you don't really want to put too long. So standard is between 30 and 60 days, unless you're doing some type of VA loan or something different that takes longer. Even VA loans can be much faster, but let's say 30 days. Most of them take closing in 30 days. Okay. Title company, meaning settlement agent. So this is just a title company. Down payment, delivery, all this is part of the contract. These are your information, how you want certain things to be delivered to you. We suggest mail, email. Sorry, that's the most, the best thing and much faster than everything else. And you can see Virginia Resale Disclosure Act, some regular information about property, which we cannot know now because we don't have property. It's just explanation of the contract. But let's say it's not located within development and it's not part of the Condo Act. Okay. Oh, this is nothing related because we said not. Okay. This is very important part. Number 9, property maintenance and conditions. Okay. Meaning seller will deliver property free and clear of trash and debris in the physical condition to be determined as of date of offer, so when we send this, or date of home inspection, or other. Okay? It really depends on the property, right? What are we going to ask them? If property is a mess and you want them to clean up before you move in, then we can write down other and specify those informations in the addendum or in the different page. However, for sake of this contract, let's say we want this to be in the same condition as of date of the offer. Okay, home inspection. What is a home inspection? Home inspection is a really important part. And again, unless you're really experienced or you are into the business for a long time, you know homes, you can do your own inspections and all that, we strongly suggest paying for that part. It's a peace of mind. For a couple $100, you can hire an inspection agency inspector who can literally inspect everything possible that can go wrong or it's already wrong. And based on this contingency, you have a right to back out the contract or negotiate with the seller for them to fix those items or lower the cost. There are two different types of inspections when it comes to the home inspection. Home inspection is basically pass or fail, meaning you like it or not, no negotiation. And other inspection is where you're gonna do what I just said previously. You're gonna negotiate based on the items that your inspector found, right? Most common thing, it's again depending on the property and why you're buying it, is negotiation inspection, that you can negotiate items or a down payment. There are different types of inspections as well. If your home has a well or a septic, or you want to do a termite inspection or radon. So all this can be added, but keep in mind, most of the time you're going to be one paying for all that. When I was buying property and that property has a well and a septic, definitely I always paid for those two things, because you want to know that your water and the septic system is in good shape. So let's say in this case, we're going to put that this contract is contingent upon home inspection, okay? When home inspection is selected, you usually have 5 to 7 business days to inspect the home. And in this case, seller will provide the broker and licensed professional to inspect the home. And this is the date beginning and ending. These are utilities and the major systems, whatever comes. So in this case, we don't have a private well or a septic tank. So let's say the water supply is a public and air conditioning is gas, heating is gas, hot water is gas, okay? And sewer disposal is public. So in the case, if sewer disposal is septic and water supply is private well, then we wouldn't need that well and septic inspection. If you're choosing the FHA loan, that's a mandatory. And there's some personal property pictures that you can ask them to leave it or not. Also some information that you want them to remove or you want them to leave. This is all part of negotiations. Fuel tanks, small detectors, very important part that all the homes are built before 1978. They had to have these lead-based paint disclosures. And here is the wood destroying insect inspection. So this is the other part I mentioned, the part of inspection. I do suggest, especially in a woodsy area, to have this termite inspection. It's not going to cost much, but at least you will know in what condition is your home when it comes to the insects. Home warranty. In most cases is no, unless you're buying the brand new construction, then it's definitely going to be yes. Title. What is title research and why is that important? So I had a situation maybe a month ago that title agency didn't do a proper job and they didn't find certain information, they didn't inform the buyer and so on. So at the closing, we found some differences, right? And what happened is they were really fast. Within an hour, they figured everything. So what they do a title research and all that search. They make sure that there are no other owners, title is clear, there are no past due taxes, liens, and all that. So honestly, we never had a situation before this one that there was some issue. But if there is an issue that's being handled during the contract, during this closing period, 30 or 60 days, so when you come to the closing, everything is in a great shape. And there's some other information here that basically fees and broker compensation, all this is part of the contract. Date of ratification is when this contract will be ratified, meaning when you get into the contract officially. Okay, so this is if you as a buyer, you're an agent, then you should write here that you are an agent. And additions. So here are some type of the contingencies that we are not going to cover in this video, but you can see what type of, we're going to go briefly through them. You're going to see what type of contingencies are here, right? So you have a home inspection, or the rate of contingency is what we already talked about. We have that one. Lead-based paint is if the home is built long ago and they have that type of paint, so we want to do inspection. There are different contingency clauses, like if you are going into a contract and you buy a home as is, or it's a 1031 exchange. So there are different type of things they're going to cover in other video. We're going to focus on the contingencies, but now we're just going to go briefly. Pre-settlement occupancy, residential property disclosure statement, we always attach that. If you're getting the FHA loan, they're a bit more strict. Conventional financing, we always do this one, because if you're doing the financing, this is the one that we attach to the contract, so you can back out if your financing doesn't go through. Extension of a review period, if you need more time to review. New home sales addendum, if you're buying a new home. Escalation addendum. So this is a really good part that I would like to cover, and I use this quite often when I'm buying my own properties. If I'm expecting a bidding war, and let's say they list the home for $350, right? But I know that home is worth $450, but they're expecting the bidding war. In that case, what I do is I do escalation addendum, that if someone offers, let's say $351 and I offer $350, my contract automatically increases by $1,000 up to $450. So it's a magic auction, right? So whoever offers more, my contract increases for $1,000, or how much we say, until the limit of $450. If someone's offered $450, $451, our contract doesn't work anymore. Private well and or septic inspection. I mentioned this before. If your home has a well or the septic, we definitely want to do this. Post-settlement occupancy, if the seller wants to stay in the home, we can negotiate that as maybe a rent-based. Lead-based paint disclosure. Every home that's built before 1978, it has to have disclosure. And this is based on the financing, VA, FHA, or USDA. It was a government-based financing. We have to have disclosure or addendum. And addendum sale, nothing important. Solar panel addendum, if we have solar panels there, if they're financed, we can negotiate to take over the payments, or we want them to pay it fully before closing, or for the closing, or from their profit, let's say, and that profit, they have to pay that solar panels. Okay, and here it's going to be when they're going to accept the offer. So if they accept the offer, they're going to put a date there, and your contract is accepted once when the seller signs. And you can see your signatures are right here. Brokerage information, my information, and there will be. So total 11 pages of this contract. If you have some addendums or contingencies, inspections, and all that. They're different documents, right? So the whole package can be around 20, maybe 30 pages for some special government loans. But if you're really straightforward buyer, commercial financing, no crazy contingencies, then this is all what we need. Okay, so we covered the contract now. The next step is what happens if you get into the contract and your offer gets rejected. It's not uncommon. If they have multiple offers and your offer is lowest and it's not so strong, there's a high chance that your offer is going to be rejected. However, if you're the only offer and they don't have other offers in hand, they're going to come back and they're going to negotiate with you unless you are really, really offering something low and they get upset, which happens. So your offer gets rejected and they have multiple offers. Don't get upset. Don't get all worried, sad, and all that, because there are many homes and we can always send a backup offer and wait, or we can look for different properties or have a backup property so we can send an offer. So it's not end of the world. We already covered what's the earnest money deposit. We already covered the seller concessions. Basically, seller concessions is the money that we can ask seller to fix certain things or to cover the closing cost. So those are a couple of things that we can ask as a seller concession. We already covered down payment. Down payment is really important. Down payment is based again on your pre-approval and how much you can afford. Most common thing, if you are buying your first property and you're let's say doing the FHA loan, they accept low as 3.5%. But in our cases here, I would say the most common thing we see is 10%. Unless you're doing investment loan, then you can expect to put down as much as 20%. That's kind of the lowest for the investment properties. Everything else goes into your benefit. If you pay less than 20%, then you're also going to have a mortgage insurance. Can you back out of the contract? It's really most common questions. Yes, you can. And this is tied to a previous explanation about the contingencies. As long as you have a contingencies and something is wrong or you don't get approved or financing completely, you can back out of that contract with no consequences. What type of inspection is this? We already covered that. And what happens on the end? Like you got into the contract, everything works smoothly, your agent is working perfectly fine, he's on top of everything, informing you about all possible updates. He's on the inspection day there, he's there on the appraisal day, he's communicating perfectly. And now the day comes, the day of the closing, right? Prior to the closing day, you're gonna have a couple of emails if you're doing financing, or even if not, from title agency. They're gonna ask for money transfer. They're gonna ask for maybe different type of documents you're gonna upload. The title agencies we use, it's really easy. They have a portal where you upload your IDs, your if they need some type of verification, and so on. And when the day comes with the closing, everything is ready. We can do a remote closing, meaning that we send a notary to you. Of course, we show up there and we guide you through the whole process. They're basically holding your hand and making sure that nothing is wrong and you don't mess up. And that appointment, if everything is great, again, we go through title with a notary. She or he, they go through every single line, making sure everything is perfectly on point and there are no issues. On the end, you basically just sign. That's it. And home is yours. This process is done. It took 30, 60 days. It can be nerve-wracking. It can be super easy. It really depends of many factors, but the beginning factor and the starting point is budget, financing, and knowing what you want. If you have any questions or any type of, I would say, information that you would like me to add in this next video about this that maybe I didn't cover here, feel free to comment, send us a message, and contact us.